This is John Warren, publisher of the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint newspaper, coming to you with our program from the desk of the editor. As I remind you each week, the Voice and Viewpoint is San Diego's oldest and only African American publication, covering 89 zip codes, 17 cities, unincorporated areas, and 39 communities in San Diego. But in addition to that, we have made our paper available online to the community, to churches, to a number of senior facilities. And so we believe very strongly that a people without a voice cannot be heard. And you certainly can't be heard if you don't know what's being said or have an opportunity to speak. And so those are things we're doing. So we're here this evening with Dr. Leonard Thompson III as we are doing an open mic in this post-Thanksgiving broadcast of ours. And if you would like to interact with us, you reach us at 858-251-6111, or you can come by way of the internet at godradio1.com. Either way, we will be happy to entertain your comments or questions and just have an open mic, lively discussion because there's so many things before us.
Well, Dr. Warren, again, we have made it through another Thanksgiving holiday. First of all, let me just ask, happy holidays. We're going into the Christmas time. How was your Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was just tremendous. It was restful. There was all the turkey and trimmings, and I was glad not to be among those millions of people that were traveling.
Me also, Dr. Warren, and I did something that was very unique. This season, I did not eat a full meal.
That's unusual.
I was determined not to be miserable or overly full, and so I nibbled and I sampled, but I didn't sit down with a plate of food. And it was still, with just the nibbling and the sampling, it was still very, very suffice. I think that is so important as we get older. You know, as I say, as I get older, the things that I used to love to do, I don't love to do no more because it doesn't have the same feeling and outcome. So I had a very, very wonderful Thanksgiving. Now looking at the Christmas holiday,
yes,
but also looking at New Year's and all the amazing things that we actually have in store for the new year. One of the things that I think is really pertinent is going into the new year is going to continue to talk about legacy and trying to encourage young African-American males and females to get involved in their local newspapers, radio stations, because we still have to create legacy. There is a dwindling away of Black-owned businesses because what happens is the children of the family members don't want to continue the business, and the family does not come with a game plan of who will be the successor after that. And if it's not family or family sells it off, then the business goes away. And so I know that we're both focused on making sure that Black-owned businesses are still going to continue to thrive. And that doesn't mean that it's always going to be your children. It could be the young people that we're up in training at this point.
Well, that's the issue that many of us are concerned with, especially in our industry. I can count the number of publishers where their children have picked up the gauntlet to continue the papers. And so many of my colleagues are gone now, that I'm just among a handful of that generation before. And so I'm watching the kids, and I maybe only on one hand can I count the ones that are continuing a family business. Most of them don't want to have anything to do with it. And we talk about succession. I know in our instance, we have approached it from the standpoint of putting the Voice and Viewpoint in a trust and putting all of the safeguards that we can put in place for things because we're so important. And I guess, you know, Dr. Thompson, the passing of Mike Norris, well-known photographer last week, just before Thanksgiving, really drove home the importance when you're talking about legacy, because there's so few of us left that have all of the legacy elements that are present, you know. And I look back and we got generation now that, for instance, they never heard of Encanto Street Fair. They never heard of Gold Coast Classic, okay, because that's 20 years ago now, 20, 25 years ago. And it's hard for them to conceptualize that we were doing so many things here
Yeah.
that are a part of the shoulders that they stand on today. And so we really have to get this generation to remember the importance of what came before them so that they can build on and not repeat some of the things that we had to go through.
And I also think, Dr. Warren, is the whole thing of starting from ground zero. So many times we're so busy trying to forge our own path that we really don't see that the path has already been forged for us, and all we have to do is continue to grow the path and go through that path. So many times we leave fruit on the vine because the bottom line is that we're unwilling to do the work, or we're unwilling to humble ourselves and really understand, the things that have impacted you. You know what I'm saying? We have to, and I say this, and this is something that we're consistently learning. I learned when I was a young man. It's something that I'm trying to make sure other young people learn. But also, that doesn't change based with age, because there's always somebody that's older than you. And then when you're at the end of the line, you have people that are younger than you. But there's always what I call a dual teaching or dual learning and a reciprocal teaching, meaning that while we're both learning from each other, we're also teaching each other. You know what I'm saying? And so it's so important that we learn how to be loving and patient towards each other. I always tell people that older people are not grouchy. They just don't have a whole bunch of words. They don't want to use a whole bunch of words to explain something that is very simple to them. And sometimes when they just say, just do it, that's because they've said it over and over and over again, and you still don't get it. So let's do it. Experience it and be a part of it, and then see by your actions in doing so. Mike hit home, because when you look at it, you say to yourself, what's the legacy? We know we have great pictures, but how many other photographers that can say, like they used to say, well, I am Malcolm X, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How many photographers that can say, I am Mike Norris, meaning that he was my mentor, he was my teacher, and it wasn't that he did not try to. You know what I'm saying? So I think that it's so important now that we encourage our young people and young adults, and adults. How can we learn from each other so that we can continue on the legacy that has already been pre-built?
Well, Mike tried on many occasions to bring young people under the umbrella to train them in terms of photography. And Mike Norris, Charles Lundy, they represent such fundamental foundations for us in terms of the community. And even Voice and Viewpoint, we have thousands of photographs from over the years. And at one point, about 20 years ago, I was pulling them out and taking them to some of our senior gatherings to try to have people identify folks. And then the people that I was using to identify, they started dying off before the identification could be made. And so, people do, for the most part, live a long time in San Diego. But what happens so often is the children come when they pass. They have too many of them have no concern about history. They'll call the junk truck and just throw everything out and get rid of it, sell the property, and then a lot of stuff is gone. And there's so much that's so important in terms of people who have passed through here and that we've interacted with. And so we're going to continue what we're trying to do. One of the things that happens at the Voice and Viewpoint many times, when people pass, family members will bring us books. They'll bring a library from a home saying, we didn't want to throw this away, and they'll give it. And I have tons of books that have been given to us that were in people's personal libraries that the families didn't want to see destroyed because, the books are still in, and there are people still reading. And so it's all very important. And so it's a difficult time because we've lost a lot of people this year that were pretty close to us when we look back from, Mike Nell, Tayati, Eric Herford. We just go back up the list in terms of people that we've lost. Tambusi and others, and it's just that season, that changing of the guard
Hmm.
season, and so we want to be sure that we not take people for granted, that we make use of time that we have with folks,
Hmm.
and when we start thinking in that context, a lot of things that we thought were important become unimportant as we try to move forward.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we are learning is that time is short, and it's not just short for uh, older people. Time is very, very short for young people as well. Their death has no timetable, and we're seeing both young and old. And so it said in the last days, old men will dream, young men will dream dreams. Old men will have visions, and so there's just so much things that we have to continue to know that it's time for us to work until the
Yeah,
day is
Joel
done.
2:24 says that in the last days, he says, I'll pour out my spirit upon my sons and daughters. And he says that old men will dream dreams and young men will see visions. And so we're in that period of time right now that these things are happening. And we need to be sensitive to it. We don't need to be overreacting to Trump and what he's doing because there are even bigger issues on the horizon.
Hmm.
We got Russia right now threatening nuclear warfare over
Hmm.
the Ukraine,
Yeah.
and that will disrupt life as so many of us know it. A nuclear attack on America doesn't necessarily have to hit where we are, though we are a prime target area, San Diego, because of our naval base facility here, Marines here. So we're prime.
Yeah.
And so we've been very fortunate. We look at what happened in Gaza. We look at what happened with the hurricanes and the destruction. And you were mentioning earlier, we don't have many black businesses left in San Diego.
Hmm.
But small businesses are one of the greatest losses when these disasters hit in terms of where do they start over. And usually in business, you got to have a client base that's interacting with you in terms of business. What happens to that base in terms of the kinds of things that we're talking about? So we're taking a lot of things for granted, and we need to just, this is a time to regroup, to reprioritize who we are and where we are and what we're doing, and that will make a big difference.
Now, Dr. Warren, there was a big press release today from the mayor's office talking about how they're going to cut the deficit, and so they say that the deficit is going to be $258.2 million projected. And it says here in details that they're freezing, the proposal is to freeze all but the most essential hirings, suspending all non essential overtime, pausing non essential spending, such as expenditures on travel and training, halting the civic center revitalization process, um, reviewing all projects in the city's capital improvement program to ensure that projects currently under construction um, are prioritized and construction of new facilities is limited. Evaluating office lease space, including the potential for early termination and renegotiation, and exploring the opportunity to monetize city facilities such as Golden Hall and adjacent parking lots, as well as other revenue generating measures for the general fund.
Okay.
So, my question to you is, how did we get here?
Well, we got here in a couple of ways. First of all, there were a lot of dollars that we had in the pandemic that were federal dollars coming in. And when the pandemic ended and those dollars dried up, then we didn't have the resources there because a lot of people who had been working and paying taxes did not go back to work. And so the tax base was impacted, both for the city and for the county and for the state. Those things are very important. And so if we look at our situation here, one of the things that is probably a positive is that such things as health care issues are not handled by the city of San Diego. Those things are handled by the county. So that's important. But the homelessness issues will be impacted, and the monies that have come down for dealing with that will be impacted. I'm sure the Kettner Street project, for all intents and purposes, should be dead in the water because there were already too many questions about it. The capital improvements represents all of the streets where they're digging up and replacing the old cast iron pipes with the blue plastic piping. And that gets to be important because in most cities, when they run into a budget crisis, one of the first things they do is take money from capital improvements. And delaying those programs increases situations where we have major ruptures, sinkholes, all kinds of damage to replace that ends up costing more than just digging up and doing the piping. And so there's going to be a great deal of discussion going forward. The independent budget analyst is supposed to be releasing a document, I think maybe this week, that's going to be more detailed in terms of everything. And then the council will have to make some decisions.
Yeah. And I know that they have the swearing in on, is it the 9th that they're having the
Yes.
swearing in?
I think it is.
And then what I hear is they're going to go right back and then vote for a new president. Who do you think is going to be the new president of the council?
I have no idea in terms of that. I just I don't know who could be, because a lot of us have not kept up with it. I hope it's not Sean Elo again, because he's been there twice, and I don't think that we need to just continue that. And so that makes a big difference to us. I'm just not sure that it's next week that's going to take place. This week we had a swearing in Sacramento. I know that Lachey took her position as the 79th Assembly Representative, and Akila Weber took her position as the first elected official from Southern California of color to sit in the Senate, because that position was held before by
Tony Atkins.
and others, and so we just didn't have people. So those are very important items that are coming up, and we need to be organizing to see how we should handle them.
I got a question to ask you.
Sure.
So, do you think that our current mayor was expecting to be headed towards the White House and not having to deal with these problems that we're facing now?
Well, it's kind of hard to say because I haven't been able to put a finger on what he wants to do next. And I think that there's still going to be opportunities out there for him, and we just don't know. You know, so much is going to happen after the next 18 months. The next 18 months, people are going to be getting ready for the elections that are coming up.
The mid-year,
the midterm elections, and they are going to have a tremendous impact on Trump's programs. You know, I have an editorial this week called Trump's People, and Plans and How We Respond. And you will notice that they put a lot of emphasis on the first 100 days, the first 180 days. They're pushing to get people in position because they know that under our system of government, there are going to be some pushbacks that they just can't ignore automatically. Case in point, Trump's going to issue a bunch of executive orders. Well, those executive orders have to be published. They want to change things like dismantling a department. Well, whatever you decide to do that, you got to issue some rules and regulations to accomplish it. And by law, under Title V, the Administrative Procedures Act, those items have to be put out for public comment for a 45-day period. And that's the time when people should start writing and responding and objecting, because after those comments come in at the end of 45 days, then that department has to go back and look at those comments. And so there's a process, and it's not just a matter of putting your favorite yes man in office, like he can go in and dismantle. They're talking about firing people. Well, we have a civil service system that dates back to the 1870s. And under the civil service system, there's a process for removing people. Now, what's happened before in some presidential turnover is that people who were career employees in the system and folks wanted to change them. Say you had a person that was in Hawaii that was an obstacle to the transition you wanted to make in Region 9. Well, what did they do? They transferred that person to Alaska, all right? And then they had to choose whether they're going to take the cold weather or withdraw because pressure can be put. In a lot of instances, people are transferred out of agencies. One of the things that Adam Clayton Powell created as chairman of the House Education and Labor Committee was the Intergovernmental Personnel Act. And that piece of legislation allows an agency to take a senior employee like a 15 or 16 or executive service person, find an institute like Heritage or the Urban Institute, find one of those places, have that place create a job for them. So they put a person in and put them over the Center for Strategic Studies in manpower, if you will. Just use that as an example. Now the agency transfers the salary and all of the benefits for that person to that think tank and sends that person there. And then under indirect costs, they give a certain amount of money to the institute for taking the person, okay? So one of the key people in San Diego that mastered this before he died was the former president of the Urban League here, who
John Johnson?
No, before him. His name is escaping me right now, because he was Republican and he was big, and he created a group with his name and associates, and so they farmed out people to work for him. And when I ran the Institute of Public Management in Washington years ago, we had a ton of people that came to work for us from different agencies. They wanted to get them out of the way, to get them out of the agency. They couldn't fire them, so they relocated them. And that was easier than putting them downstairs in a back room. And so we see people on the news all the time that they're called in to give comments, and they are director of the Center for this and the Center for that. And all of that means is that the administration they were in, like in this case, the Democrats, they farmed those positions out, and those people move. Now, Trump is probably going to upset the apple cart and try to mess with some of those things. But he boasted about firing folks, but he just can't go in and do a clean sweep. And so I'm taking time to say this because if we use our heads and we think, the system is still going to be in place, and there are things that can happen that can block what he has. A very good case in point, Gaetz was blocked from becoming Attorney General, and Peter Hesep is about to be kicked out trying to be Secretary of Defense because Trump only has so many IOUs that he can play.
Yeah.
And remember, the whole Senate was not up for election, only 1/3 of it.
Yeah.
And so he can't threaten everybody. And a lot of these people, when they start getting pressure from back home, they're going to start responding to the pressure and not to the president.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's my job and our job to help people understand how this process works so everybody won't fold their tent and decide, oh, we're defeated, there's nothing we can do, and then yield and let them go ahead and take over.
Yeah, and I think one of the things is that we have to still stay vigilant. You know how they say watch and pray?
Yes.
You know, we're going to have to still watch and pray and realize that the battle is not, over. And the battle is not even ours, it's the Lord's. And so we just have to make sure that we stay focused, prayed up, but also stay vigilant and know what's really going on. There's another thing before the end of the year, there's that whole paperwork that if you have a nonprofit corporation or an LLC, I'm blocking on the paperwork that has to be signed, but by the Treasury Department, if you don't have that filled out by the first of the year, day one is $500, and it's $500 all the way up.
Well, is that just for, because we mentioned this on Black Men and Women United, is that just for LLCs and nonprofits?
All corporations.
Because I thought all corporations, which
All
includes
corporations.
Schedule S and C
Yeah.
corporations. So all corporations have to, and those are the kind of things that a lot of black businesses get in trouble with because they don't respond to it. They don't understand the importance of it, and then they get caught up in it, and it can be very messy because you don't want to start accumulating those kind of fines.
Yeah. And it basically, for those that are not staying aware, it could topple your company.
Oh yeah, it can put you out of business, but
Yeah.
toppling your company will not end the obligation to pay the debt because
Exactly.
then they will come after you personally in terms of that.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that makes all the difference in the world. So those are things that we have to pay very close attention to.
Yes, yes, yes. So, Dr. Warren, as we're moving forth, getting ready to close out another year, God said the same we'll be able to see into 2025. Let's just talk about some of the things that we have on the horizon. I know that both of us are in the Stop the Hate campaign, and that's winding down for this year. There might be another round next year, but right now that's winding down. Hate crimes. Are we doing any better or not? Or
No,
just-
because according to the Attorney General, the biggest victims of hate crimes in the state of California are African Americans. And all this money that we just saw dealing with, a lot of that was put in place through the California Library because Asians were the people that were being impacted. And so when they gave money to them, then they started including the rest of us in some of what was taking place. But hate crimes are still a very big issue, number one. Number two, we have a lot of things that are already in the hopper in the state that we need to look at. And those things are going to impact all of us. We got Proposition 36, which changes a lot of Prop 47, which took certain felony things like how much marijuana you had and moved it from a felony to a misdemeanor. And it did things like if you stole something, if the value was less than $950, then it was a misdemeanor. Well, after the smash and grab scenario that's taken place in the state, which led to the passage of Prop 36, a lot of these misdemeanors are being restored to their status as felonies. And so I've been in touch with the with the district attorney, discussing how we might do. We're working on a couple of webinars and meetings here where and commentaries in the paper where we're going to have the district attorney explain how she's going to start enforcing the changes because the changes go into effect immediately. Okay, and so that's going to make a difference in terms of arrest and convictions and the whole scenario. So those are things that we got to look at, Dr. Thompson, and we have a lot of them to pay attention to, number one. From our own personal standpoint, we're getting ready to go into the MLK season, which is going to be in January, where we do the Jackie Robinson breakfast that pulls some 1,400 people projected for this year as it returns to Town and Country. And of course, on February 7th, we are planning to have our 12th annual Voice and Viewpoint Gala, and that is going to be at the Liberty Station, and we're working on that right now. And then we have events coming up in between, like this Friday. We have the starting of the Black Nativity that's going to be at ECC, with Common Ground. And both GOD Radio and Voice and Viewpoint have been pushing very hard to get support for that event. And we're going to be there for it. I know on Friday I'm delivering the invocation to kick it off. And so we got a lot of things that are beginning to pick up. If one missed it online, if you can still pick up a copy of our Thanksgiving issue, it is so much in there in terms of the giveaways of food that were done by different organizations, showing the hearts of our people that are still open and they're still putting stuff out. And so we're gearing up for the next round of this.
Yeah, and I think one of the things about looking at 2025, this is a technology that is coming out. AI is going to play a big role in making some of the activities a little bit easier to navigate. I always said, and this is something that's very important. Some people say, "Oh, AI this and AI that," but let me say, if you have ever used Siri, if you've ever used Google or any of those things, you have been using AI. So I don't want you guys to be able to start saying it ain't nothing but the devil because you guys been using AI for some time. When you Google Maps and you're trying to find certain things, that's AI, in its simplest form.
And if you had that little black ball there, Alexa,
Yeah,
that's definitely AI. You asking Alexa to tell you the weather and tell you a recipe and
yeah,
help you cook and all those things.
yeah.
It's artificial intelligence. And then we've found in many instances those elements are listening to you even when they're not supposed to be on recording information. And so, I think that for the AI issue is so big, I like to refer back to Schwarzenegger's The Terminator.
Yeah.
Okay, and the element there was that artificial intelligence uh, got control of mankind,
Hmm.
and since it can outthink us right now, it can write letters, you can answer your emails, it can pull up scriptures, it can write sermons, it can do all kinds of things.
Well, Doc, you talked about Alexa, and you know, first of all, with Siri, I had to change the Siri voice to a male voice, and I told people said, well, what is that all about? I said, because Siri the female kept getting smart with me, and I wasn't gonna have it. So me and Siri the female had a breaking up, and I changed the voice to a male who's a little bit more respectful. My question to you is, somebody said, well, what about Alexa? I said, Alexa can't be in my house. There's only going to be one woman telling me what to do in my household, and that'll be my wife. And it was funny because I said Alexa would cause some people to get hurt. Because if I get, we do long hours. So if I walk in at 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm tired and I forget Alexa's there, and she's like, well, good morning, where you been? Or something like, Alexa might have might get shot because it catches you off guard.
Well, I keep Alexa unplugged except for when I need to use it.
Yeah.
My kids gave me Alexa, and I love to cook, so I might check a recipe or something like that. But I just don't believe in. It's just like we used to know how to go wherever we were driving to.
Yeah.
Now we're using GPS. We couldn't even tell you what a street sign is because we're just following and many times the GPS will take you a long way around to get where you were going, where you could have gotten there in a simple fashion if you went.
Well, see, what people don't know is that GPS also got to be paid for, and so sometimes they want to send you past certain spots, so that they can get some points, so that they get more money. It's just like if they could have taken you straight down the back way and got you there quicker, but this way got you past all these fast foods and all these stores. So you I might need to stop in there. So there's a method to every madness that we go through.
Right, there is indeed. But we want to encourage people to speak up. We need to hear from you. We need an email, a letter, a comment. We're publishing News Bite, a newsletter 3 times a week. We just completed a survey asking for nominations for Unsung Hero and Changemaker Awards to be recognized. We've already identified 2 pastors that we're going to honor with our.
Now, is that
shepherd.
over though? Is that over?
It's over as of this Friday.
Okay, so we still have time.
Yeah, if they get it in, I believe by Friday, that's going to be the last day, and after that, it won't be open anymore.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And this is the first year that we've actually done it where it's like not a people's choice, but a people's recommendation.
Yes, because we have reserved the right at the paper to determine who our honorees are.
Mm-hmm.
And we've made it a point of not just honoring people trying to get money or trying to get folks out. One of the things that we've done, again, with this year is the tickets to the gala are only going to be $95. I believe that we don't want to be over $100 for anything during this difficult time. that we have. And so that means then that sponsors will have to play a major role, but it also means that we're not just using it as a fundraiser, we're using it as an additional way of serving the community in terms of reaching the people. And
Yeah.
so far, we've been blessed in doing this because the more we do, the more this comes in. Since we don't have a sales staff and all of those things that other people use, we just have people coming to us to do business.
Yeah, one of the things that is being very mindful is that the hard thing about what we do in production and in event planning as well as entertainment is that while everybody wants the same prices, they don't take in consideration that our cost factors of employment now has gone up astronomically in California, and we have to offset it some way. And so these are the things that we consistently are dealing with as we're trying to continue to keep the service level at a very high level.
And you're so right, Dr. Thompson, because people don't realize it, but those of us who are in business, all right, we have taxes to pay, and those taxes got to be paid every time you make a payroll. We have insurance to pay. Okay, in our case, in terms of still printing, all of the printing operations that used to be in San Diego County are gone. There's no longer any place that prints. We have to print our paper in Anaheim and pay to have it shipped to San Diego every week so that we can do a distribution. And in the midst of that, we haven't changed our price. I'm not going to change it. It stays 50 cents. You still get it in church. You can buy it at 7-Eleven or one of the neighborhood stores that still carry it. And if you don't see it, you need to ask people why. Because some people are shying away in this age. A lot of folks carried our paper years ago before the internet because when people came to buy the paper, they usually bought something else. And so now with the changes, there's an effort to push back because what we're doing is remaining the trusted messenger and the voice. Mm-hmm. And you can count on us more than you can on social media. Dr. Thompson, let me say this about social media. My social analytics person every day looks at who the people are following the Voice and Viewpoint. We look at them by city in terms of here, where San Diego is first largest, second being LA, and then we move on up San Jose, Sacramento, San Francisco, all like that. Then we have, this is the part that amazes me, that we have 90 countries that follow Voice and Viewpoint, mm-hmm. which was a shock to me. And we have people telling us, in terms of that statistical analysis, how many people in each country are reading the paper each week. Mm-hmm. And so just like you have become international with GOD Radio, when we got 90 countries following us, we certainly are international. And I mean, they are across the board from Indonesia, Philippines, Japan, Pakistan, you just name it. Nigeria, Sierra Leone, all of these places, there are people reading us, the United Kingdom and Canada, and all of these people that are following. And so people want to know what we see and think as Black people in this country, dealing with the racism and all the changes that are going on. Mm-hmm. And they're watching to see how we handle these things, because so much of the protests in the world is based on what we did with civil rights. Mm-hmm. And we're still going forward. So I just wanted to make people aware of what we're doing.
One of the things about, the newspaper is the secret weapon. A lot of times people think that the newspaper is just for news, but if they pay attention, the newspaper is also for advertisement. And you said 90 countries. That means that if you got a special sauce or something that you are trying to sell and get out to the public, this is a secret weapon that people forget, that is not just advertising social services or this. You can actually advertise a product, and through that, you will find out that you have bigger hits. And what I love about it is that the paper is in print form, but there's also a digital form. Right. And so once you advertise in a newspaper, it's for life. You know what I'm saying? So if you have a product and you buy a month's worth of advertisement, you go back, 4 months from now and look at that ad again.
Well, you know what's so funny about what you just said? Sometimes I go back into the '60s, and I'll pull the papers that we have bound, and like uh, the the market in National City, big whatever it was, the big market, and it's interesting looking at what the price of things were. You
Yeah.
know, when bread was 15 cents, and chickens were 29 cents a pound,
I
and
remember
candy.
when gas was 25 cents.
I do too. Gas was a quarter, and also, pot pies. They used to be five for $1.
Yeah.
Okay, and now you got that pot pie place on El Cajon Boulevard,
Uh-huh.
and you're getting the same small pot pie for maybe $5 for one pie.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
and so, and in those days when you went to the store, if you spent $100, you had those big paper bags that were full to the brim in terms of what you were getting.
Yeah.
Okay, and so now you can go in the store and spend $100 and almost stick what you buy in your pocket.
And that is that the times are changing. Although we have to be very mindful that God has given us a lot of resources, is now talking about how we're using our resources to help us to get to the next level. Now, Dr. Warren, I hate to say it, but I love crab. You know what I'm saying? But I'm a little bit persnickety about my crab. I like the king crab, the big, meaty,
Yeah.
robust crab. And the blue claws and the snow crabs, they just make me upset because not enough meat on them.
Yeah.
But I could maybe explore that once every 6 months because those you could get two claws and spend $100 on two claws, and I might say, well, the devil's a lie. I'm just gonna have to.
Well, where do you go to buy those? Because if you go to the Vietnamese seafood market and you pick the right time to go,
Right time. There you
they
go.
got the crabs there. Now, I'm from back east, and so we used to buy a bushel of crabs for maybe $15.
Okay. Now
Okay.
they don't know what no bushel is.
Well, that's a big basket.
Okay.
All right. A bushel is a basket like you see people that used to bring apples in a big basket. And so that was a bushel. And they would load it with crabs. And you had a big pot. I still have one of those pots that we used in order to cook stuff like that. They still been closed since the fire, the Imperial Fish Market. But in that Imperial Fish Market, they had a ton of southern seafood spices and seasonings.
Yes.
Okay, a lot of that stuff you could buy everything you needed to make roux for a gumbo. You had all kind of spices like Slap Your Mama was there on the shelf and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And many of these things came right out of Baton Rouge from a place called Tony's. Okay, and Tony's, I used to go there a lot. Tony's on a Sunday would have black people lined up down the street in their Sunday go to meetings because they went to Tony's right after church.
That's right.
Because it was black folks in the kitchen cooking,
Uh-huh.
and so it was the cabbage and the fried chicken and potato salad and whatever you wanted, they had it ready to go. And we used to buy bushels of seafood stuff from Tony's and have them pack it on ice and ship it here where we were making gumbo. I would meet the plane at Lindbergh, and the pot would already be on, and then we would throw the stuff in the pot and make the gumbo. And so there's just a lot to be said because we miss so much, and yet there's, these were the good things, the good times, the sharing times. I know the Chargers used to hang out at our house every time we made gumbo because they loved to eat, and we always had so much that they couldn't eat it all. And of course I didn't know who played what because I'm not a football fan, so all I know is everybody was just saying, "Hey, Mom, can I have some more?" and then eating up.
Yeah.
So these are things we should be mindful of going forward. So that we can still be a blessing to each other because there's so many things right now more important than just running out buying gifts. And there's so many things that we can give to people that makes a difference. Sometimes it's just having somebody come and giving them a chance to be in a setting that's like a family when they might not have one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are things we want to look at.
Yeah, and I think that's in this season, just slowing down enough to call people that live by themselves to check in on them, and then make some time for some of the seniors that just want company. They don't want anything. They would just love to have you come and sit with them and talk with them.
Yeah. And, we don't hear talk about it anymore, but, 20-some years ago, what we used to do in the community is we would go to, this was before they closed the Naval Training Center.
Mm-hmm.
We would get those young people, and we'd make a habit of folks inviting one or two of them who were away from home
Yep.
to our homes for Thanksgiving and for Christmas dinners because they didn't have the benefit of that, and they loved it. They loved being with families again. And I can remember being in the service and being away from home from Thanksgiving. The food was good, but it was still nothing like having been home when you couldn't be there. It's too far away to go.
Now, Dr. Warren, don't start nothing, because I could see some people saying that. Wait a minute, we could bring sailors, and they could put a request in. Yes, I'll take 6 of them.
Yeah, we used to do that, and they loved it. They really did love it, and we did it for Thanksgiving and for Christmas. This is a part we've missing, Dr. Thompson. It's good that we talk about it because remember, I always keep mentioning the Wilsons. How they fed people. They set up the tables right down there in their yard, and they fed folks dinners and a whole bit. And I don't know if we had a feeding at Golden Hall this Thanksgiving.
I didn't see anything.
Yeah, because people used to go there and volunteer. And I remember when the NAACP had the office on Imperial, and they would set up the tables right outside on the lawn, and they would feed people there, volunteer to feed folks. And so a lot of that has gone away. And the depression, we want to help people fight the depression because we don't know everybody thinking that every meal has to be a Hallmark moment. If you're in a house and you got a television, by the time you start watching all these Christmas programs, you'll feel like you're really missing something because money is not an obstacle and everything is all big and pretty and fancy, and that's not real, okay? And so we need to think about how we help people, and we need to be more meaningful, okay? Because that makes a difference. It was Miss Maxine Wilson, LaShawn is telling me, she was a friend of her mother.
Yeah.
The Wilsons, yes.
And so one of the things about it is that having another heart of giving and a heart for service, I think that we're in such a taken instant society where everybody wants. Everybody want to pop bottles. Everybody want to live large. Everybody want to get on the cruise. And at the end of the day, people are trying to live this fantasy life, but I consistently ask, if you're always on vacation, when do you ever work? And some people say that their vacation is work because they're influencers. That is a true job now, to be an influencer, and they're always posting and everything like that. And I said some of them need to go from being influencers to just go on and being a reporter and be able to report the news and tell things about it because, again, I see so much that goes on through social media. One of the funny things is that even in the football players, so they had to start giving them some warnings. Don't tell folks when you're not going to be at home. Stop advertising that you go after the game, you're going to be somewhere else.
Yeah, because there's a break-in waiting for you.
Exactly.
And
I'm still trying to understand with all these high-level players that they don't have no type of security that stops people from just walking up into their house and breaking in.
Well, they got insurance, okay? So some of them want people to break in, but people follow. We had that problem when we used to do Gold Coast. We had I remember on one occasion when we left the stadium, some people followed us home to Bonita, okay? And what they didn't realize was that we had a car following that car, okay? And so when we turned into the gated complex and they realized the car behind them was a part of security for us, then they just kept on up the hill to a dead-end street, okay? But they had plans in terms of it. And so we just have to be mindful, And, don't leave packages in your car, on the seat, and all of that stupid stuff, because somebody's going to break the window and take them.
Yeah. Even if it's nothing, even if it's
Yeah.
just a box, it
Yeah.
could be an empty box. They don't know that, so they
No,
bust
until
it
they
open.
get it,
Yeah. So let me just ask the question, because
Yes.
people, inquiring minds want to know, will there ever be a Go-Go's Classic again?
Well, you know what? There can be. We have the trademark element involved, and if somebody wants to do it, I'm in a position that I can give them a license to do Gold Coast. But as far as me doing it or my family doing it again, no. No. It's so much involved in it. And I'm
How
about to
many
publish.
years? How many years did you do it?
We did it for 10 years,
10.
and we did 3 years of preparation before we did the first one.
So you took 3 years of preparation, and then you took a decade of your life.
Yeah, doing
Okay,
it.
doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was a very difficult decade because there were a lot of obstacles. People didn't want to. There were our own people that didn't want to see it succeed. Okay, and we had pushback from San Diego. We had pushback from just about everywhere. Pushback from the people we rented buses from. Pushback from the hotels. Pushback from the restaurants. Just a lot of different pushback. And after 9/11, insurance became a major issue for any public event, so that Homeland Security had to get involved. And, it cost $1 million a year to do Gold Coast. And people don't realize how much it costs. We had 12 events, and that was a lot of money. We had $12 million in insurance in addition to the 12 events that we did. And so I've written a book about it in terms of all the details and the way it came together in terms of what we did. It was only by the grace of God that we were able to do it. I know the people in Indiana that do the Circle City Classic. Following one game, we brought them out to see if we could learn from them because we were new at what we were doing. So after the first day of meeting with them, showing them what we did, when they came back the second day, their attitude was, we need to learn from you because we've been doing this for 20-some years, but we never knew what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, and so we shared those kind of things, and we did significant things in San Diego, like Torrey Pines. We were the first black entity to hold a major golf tournament at Torrey Pines, which is a public golf course, and tried to block us in terms of doing that. We had coaches' luncheons at SeaWorld and parades and a whole bunch of things. So all of this means that we need to get back to supporting the events. This weekend will be a good place to start, filling up ECC for the Black Nativity.
Yes.
And that would be such an act of encouragement to the people producing it, and the support for our community would just be fantastic.
Yeah, and there's several events that are taking place, but the Black Nativity is launching at 7:30 on this Friday at the Educational Cultural Complex, 4343 Ocean View Boulevard. Tickets are still on sale at commongroundtheater.com. And there's a special rate. If you go down and you scroll, you can see a GOD radio special rate, and you'll get some special rates if you click on that button to buy your ticket. Now, Dr. Warren, also, your good friend Mark Jenkins over at Preferred Cremation and Burial is doing his annual Christmas concert starting at 5:30 on this Saturday with Deneen Wilburn at the St. Stephen's Cathedral Church of God in Christ, mainly to help families that have lost have a time of healing and love. But it's open for the whole entire community to come out and fellowship. So if you go to Black Nativity on Friday, then you also have a Saturday opportunity.
So is that St. Stephen's? Because I thought it was at Liberty Station.
No. It's at St. Stephen's Cathedral.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very important. Okay. So we have these opportunities to do that. And when you're speaking about losses, remember on the first week, which will be January 3rd, I believe, we publish our annual Those We've Loved and Lost publication. And has just about everyone in our community that passed this year. We have their names and pictures because we found years ago that so many times when you don't see people, you don't realize that they passed because out here, everybody does not put everything in the paper in terms of losses. You know, most of them on the West Coast are published after the funeral and the services. On the East Coast, the notices are given beforehand so that people can make the visitations. And so it's not done that way here. And people who use like Dignity or SCI, those large corporate entities, they never place obits with us. And the families, if they want it, they have to bring it directly. Okay, so we'll be publishing that and putting that information out there. And so this is a good time for us to be mindful of losses that people have, because it can be that first year of celebration behind a loss can be a tremendously painful and difficult time. And so you need to be with friends, and we need to find people that we can comfort and support.
Yes, and that's the biggest thing. In this season, I think it's going to be so important that we look beyond ourselves.
Yes.
And beyond our own homes, and look out to your community. There's going to be so many big Christmas giveaways. But shout out to Dr. Carol, who is actually going to do her big giveaway again.
Yes.
We can't call it the Jacob Center, so what do we call it? That space that was formerly known as the Jacob Center?
Well, you know what? We just had an event there, which is in the paper, before Thanksgiving, and they had over 1,000 turkeys that they gave away, probably a couple of thousand people and hundreds of volunteers. And so the lines wrapped around the building, across the bridge, and around the amphitheater in terms of all day. So people know the location because it's being promoted on social media.
Yeah.
That was the Commission on Gang Prevention and Violence, as well as a circle of community groups, and we have that in the paper as well.
Well, I tell you, we've had a tremendous time of giving and a tremendous time of preparation. We want to encourage everybody to continue to love each other, realize that we're going to be stronger together, that everything that we go through, it will pass, but we have to stay focused, and we have to also stay vigilant, and we have to read. You know, that is going to be one of our biggest things. If I challenge you to do anything more, I challenge you to pick up and start reading. Don't just let people spoon feed you. Don't just let people give you a social media blurb, but pick it up, read it for yourself. And then if you don't agree with it, write about it and send it in to the Voice, Voice and Viewpoint, and they'll publish it.
And we want to also invite people in the community. We have Black Men and Women United on Tuesdays, and if you want to be able to Zoom and join us for that, then you can call the paper and leave your email. But it is for San Diego's Black community because it's a quiet healing place, and so everybody just can't be there, and that's why you need to call so we can screen to make that happen.
But they can be at Biscuits, Grits, and Politics.
They can be
time.
that when we do that again, and that will be sometime in January maybe. Yeah.
Or March.
Or March.
Because we're going to be jam-packed.
Yeah, so I think it'll be in March when we do the next one.
Yeah.
But again, we copyright that event as well so that we can have control. I just want to thank people for being with us, and we have like 2 more programs that we'll be doing before Christmas, and we'll be talking about the events happening in the community, and if you have something that we need to share, this will be a place and opportunity. Just get in touch with us either here at GOD Radio or at the Voice and Viewpoint, and we can look at that.
And one of the things, Dr. Warren, I'm going to put my pitch in. I would like to do things on scams. Because there are a lot of scams that are out there that people are falling for.
Yes.
And so we're going to try to look into getting some people to talk about the different scams and keep us aware so that we won't fall for it during this time in this season.
We will do that.
Well, with that being said, this is from the Desk of the Editor with Dr. John Warren. We pray that you all have a very blessed evening. God say the same. We'll see each other next week. Any final words, Dr. Warren?
Just be prayerful and count your blessings and be aware of your blessings. And you'll be surprised how little you will have to complain about if you do that.
All right. Be blessed.